call this meeting to order.
I call this meeting to order.
18th meeting of the House of Commons Special Committee on the COVID-19 pandemic. A reminder to all members that in order to avoid issues with sound, members participating in person should also not be connected to the video conference.
For those joining via video conference, I would like to remind you that when speaking, you should be on the same channel as the language you are speaking.
S'il vous plaît.
Please direct your remarks through the chair, and also a brief reminder that today's proceedings are televised.
On this note, I would like to remind members participating both in video conference and in person that they should follow the usual dress code in place in the House.
We will now proceed to ministerial announcements.
There are no ministerial announcements, so we'll move on to presenting petitions.
We will now proceed to presenting petitions. I would like to remind members that any petition presented during a meeting of the special committee must have already been certified by the clerk of petitions.
For the deputies, for the members participating in person, we ask that you please come and drop the signed certificates off at the table once the petition is presented. Now, the first petition being presented goes to Ms. May. Ms. May.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's an honor to rise in our special session of the COVID Committee to present a petition from many people across Canada. It is e-petition 535. And while it deals in general with the urgent situation of the climate emergency, it focuses in on the specific issue of climate finance. Canada's climate finance committees fall due, finance commitments fall due again this year. They're calling the Canada at the moment, less than 35% of international climate finance investments are supporting projects that assist developing countries adapt to those levels of climate crisis that we can no longer avoid. So they're calling on the Government of Canada to commit at least 50% of Canada's public climate financing for developing countries to go towards the category of actions generally described as adaptation, and at least 15% towards projects that target gender equality as a primary objective. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Now, presenting petitions will go to Ms. Kwan. Ms. Kwan is joining us online. Let's go on to Ms. Jans. Oh, here he is. Very good. Ms. Kwan.
She's on.
I believe you're on mute, Ms. Kwan.
Here we go.
There we go.
All right, system alive. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to present a petitions. The petition is calling for the government to set more stringent targets and implement the policies needed to reduce emissions to levels that will meet the climate emergency. The petitioners are noting that greater action is required to address the climate emergency being caused by human production of greenhouse gases. They further note that Canada's current emission reduction targets are insufficient to prevent warming of 1.50 degrees Celsius, which the international community has agreed upon as a safe upper limit. So to that end, Mr. Speaker, the petitioners are calling for the House of Commons to take action.
We'll now go to Mr. Reid. Mr. Reid.
Mr. Speaker, I apologize. It's a bit of a new format for me. I have a petition that is presented, I guess it's the old-fashioned way, as a paper petition by a number of constituents who presented it before the outbreak began, while it was still safe to do so. And processing has taken some time for it to come through. What they ask is, with regard to seed saving, Mr. Speaker, they ask the House of Commons to take into account the importance of saving seeds, and they ask that we make sure that that right is not taken away from farmers and others who have an interest in preserving the broad diversity of the seed stock in our society. Thank you.
Presenting petitions, Ms. Jansen.
Mr. Chair,
Many Canadians are concerned about the government's proposal regarding euthanasia to remove or loosen certain safeguards currently in place which protect vulnerable Canadians. They recognize that the government already has a challenge with the current safeguards in enforcing them. Loosening them further would endanger too many at-risk Canadians. So that's why I'm pleased to rise here today to table this petition, urging the government to discontinue the removal of safeguards for people requesting euthanasia.
Presenting petitions. Seeing none, I just want to remind the members present in the chamber that those who have not yet done so, that members are asked to bring their petitions to the table. We'll now proceed by statements by members, and the first one goes to Ms. May. Ms. May.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. When I reserved this spot for a member's statement some time ago, I wanted to acknowledge that today is World Oceans Day and speak to the threats to our oceans. But instead, 1 week ago today, we lost one of our champions of oceans. We lost a giant in the world of literature, campaigning for a better world, someone who was loved by many. Silver Donald Cameron, one of Canada's leading journalists, author of 20 books, died a week ago today after a very sudden, fierce diagnosis of lung cancer that killed him within the week. He was a member of the Order of Canada, a member of the Order of Nova Scotia. Born in Toronto, raised in British Columbia, he chose Cape Breton Island for his home in 1971 and lived in the little fishing village of Discoos. His last book will come out in August, Blood in the Water. I have to say, he's left an enormous hole in our hearts, in the work of the environmental movement, and the world of Canadian literature. Rest in peace, dear sailor Don Cameron.
We'll now go to Mr. Easter. Mr. Easter.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Today I'd like to pay tribute to Mr. Gerald McArdle, the long-serving mayor of Kensington, PEI, who passed away in January at age 88. Gerald was a pillar of the Kensington community, serving as mayor for over 25 years. His loyalty and devotion to his community was an inspiration to all. In fact, Gerald made a point of refusing to buy his groceries anywhere but Kensington. Now that's a true commitment to buying local. As mayor, Gerald improved the governance of Kensington and oversaw the modernization of the town's water system and the development of the first industrial park. To quote his daughter, Catherine, Gerald was fiercely proud of his island and Irish heritage and a wonderful father, grandfather, and great-grandfather. Gerald's life's contribution to his community, often with wife Jenny by his side, were immense. We salute you, Gerald.
We'll now go on to Mr. Van Pupta. Mr. Van Pupta.
Mr. Chair, like everyone else in British Columbia, the people in my home riding of Langley-Aldergrove are welcoming a new and better phase of the fight against COVID-19. We're starting to enjoy some of the small things in life, such as planting a tree. The other day, I was able to distribute almost 1,000 tree seedlings as part of Canadian Environmental Week. I want to thank the fine folks at Home Depot for allowing us to use their outside area again, Nat's Nursery for supplying the seedlings, but a special shout out to Nicole Marples and her team of dedicated volunteers at Langley Environmental Partners Society for helping with the distribution and the setup. Mr. Chair, what better and clearer expression of hope than to plant a tree? I want to thank all the dedicated gardeners in my riding for taking a tree and planting it, making Langley greener and even more beautiful. Thank you.
We'll now go on to Ms. Jones. Ms. Jones. Oh, I believe you're muted, Ms. Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As we enter the fourth month of COVID-19, Canadians are looking to inspiring stories of communities coming together in a time of crisis to support each other. There are so many great stories out there, and today I will share one with you from Labrador. Each day, more and more people are wearing non-medical masks across the country to protect themselves and others from the spread of COVID-19. A group of amazing Labradorians stepped up to help provide their friends and neighbors and
strangers with non-medical masks designed and sewn right at their kitchen tables. From Wabush to Lanza-Clare and Sheshatshiu to Nain and all communities in between, hundreds of volunteers worked hard to provide every Labradorian with a homemade mask to keep communities and residents safe. I want to thank all of those who took part in this initiative, including the sponsors, and especially acknowledge the Iron Ore Company of Canada and Nunatuavut. I am so proud to represent the people of Labrador and highlight the kind and caring ways they support each other through difficult and challenging times. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
We're now going to go on to Mr. Trudel. Mr. Chairman, for the past 3 months, all levels of government have been repeating, stay at home. But you have to have a home. Considering that the UN has blamed Canada 3 times for the poor state of its housing, considering that over 300,000 Quebec households live in inadequate housing, considering that 82,000 Quebec households before the pandemic were spending over 80% of their income on housing, considering that the government committed $250 billion to managing this pandemic, but it's still not giving $1.5 billion to Quebec, considering that over a dozen housing associations, dozens of mayors in Quebec, representing over 85% of the Quebec population, and the National Assembly of Quebec unanimously are demanding investment in social housing. The Bloc Québécois is demanding the immediate and unconditional signature of a housing agreement with Quebec.
We'll now proceed to Ms. Latanzio. Ms. Latanzio.
It is with great pride as a daughter of Italian immigrants that I invite you during the month of Italian heritage to recognize the exceptional and valuable past and ongoing contributions made by Canadians of Italian origin to the culture, history, and economic development of this great country, Canada. It is also an opportunity for us to remember their journeys, humble beginnings, hard work, dedication for family, and celebrate their stellar accomplishments spanned in numerous industries and professions. I invite all Canadians to experience this month and throughout the year La Dolce Vita and learn more about the rich Italian heritage and traditions. Treat yourselves to a gelato, cappuccino, cannoli, or enjoy playing a game of bocce, or better yet, come and visit Il Centro Leonardo da Vinci in St. Leonard, my riding, an iconic community center that encompasses all that is Italian and signals that you have arrived at a proud, strong, and Italian community. Viva, auguri e lunga vita agli Italo-Canadesi.
We will now proceed to Mr. Nazir. Mr. Nazir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It is a pleasure for me to honor and recognize 2 promising young adults in my constituency today. Cole Stainer of Birtle and Sydney Strossen of Langruth are the only Manitoba recipients of the prestigious Lawrence Scholarship Award worth $100,000 each. Cole is the captain of BCI's hockey and basketball teams and coaches in youth sports programs. He is co-president of the Student Council and hopes to combine his business acumen and passions for engineering to create a better world. Sydney has served as treasurer in student government for the last 2 years. She is a member of WMC's environmental and social justice groups and volunteers at Manitoba Museum and the Canadian Museum of Human Rights. Mr. Chair, on behalf of the Dauphin Swan River Neepawa, I would like to extend my congratulations to Cole and Sydney on being selected for the largest undergraduate scholarship in Canada. Good luck and best wishes to both of you in future studies.
We'll now go on to Ms. Dillon. Ms. Dillon.
Mr. Chair, Black Lives Matter. We are hearing these chants echo throughout the world. No one should ever have to assert their right to life, nor have to justify why they must be treated as equals. It is an inherent right within us all. No one should ever have to say again, I can't breathe, or be the subject of gratuitous violence by those who have sworn to protect us. The weaponization of laws and abuse of power have become all too common. For racialized people, the racial profiling, the terror of being followed for no reason, the fear for yourself and your loved ones, knowing things can get bad within minutes, even seconds, leaves us traumatized. These experiences remain imprinted upon us. We never forget or heal from these traumas. We are left with scars that we carry for the rest of our life.
Those who deny the existence of systemic racism and of institutional discrimination Well, it's not up to you to deny the existence of inequality and contempt that some communities face every day.
Of systemic oppression are obliterated. There is little hope for equality or humanity. Thank you.
Now go to Mr. Doan. Mr. Doan.
Thank you, and good afternoon and good morning, dear colleagues. The uncertain and challenging times presented to Canadians by COVID-19 has also brought out the best in communities across the country. I would like to recognize some of the amazing groups working every day to support residents of Don Valley North during COVID-19. Bayview Village Association, Abuhara Center, Armenian Community Center of Toronto, Afghan Women's Organization of Ontario, Oriole Food Space, Fairview Interagencies Network, Emmanuel Baptist Church, Adventure Place, Forest Grove United Church, Confederation of Toronto Chinese Canadian Organizations, Council of Newcomers Association, Windonese in Ontario, Scarborough York Region Chinese Business Association, Buddhist Pragna Prempo, Bethune Medical Association of Canada, and of course, the fantastic team at North York General Hospital. Thank you very much for your great work, your kind donation, and awesome volunteerism. Thank you.
We'll now go to Mr. Moore. Mr. Moore. Mr. Moore, you're on mute. Mr. Moore, can you hear me?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, the COVID-19 pandemic has highlighted the important role of technology to connect with family, friends, and society. Unfortunately, many of my constituents in Fundy Royal have been unable to take advantage of the many forms of digital communication due to a lack of access to high-speed internet. As many employers across Canada asked employees to work from home, those in rural communities with weak internet connections are left at a disadvantage. The federal government needs to act and ensure that investments are made in rural, high-speed internet, and importantly, they need to ensure transparency for those investments to residents so that they know where and when to expect improvements. Rural Canadians across Canada have waited long enough. It's time for action.
We'll now go to Mr. Finnegan. Mr. Finnegan.
Merci.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. For over 20 years, people in the greater Rogersville region have worked hard to gain a community space and platform to allow our French-Acadian heritage and culture to thrive. It's been a long road, but this has finally become a reality with the official announcement of Mélanie Joly, the Minister of Tourism and Official Languages, in January 2019. As this project is almost complete, it is now time to name our theatre cafetorium. With the cooperation of our community partners, we've decided to dedicate this building to Lisa LeBlanc. Lisa, as an internationally renowned artist from our region, she continues to inspire future generations in our community to pursue their talents and dreams. She has certainly showed us that making our dreams come true doesn't matter where you come from, but rather where you want to go. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
On to Mr. Kimmich. Mr. Kimmich.
Mr. Chair, this viral pandemic has brought upon two opposite responses, one from the people and one from the federal government. People across Canada have soldiered on, accepting limits on their freedoms to protect vulnerable neighbours. Parents homeschooled, strangers brought groceries to seniors, and first responders were honoured for their efforts. All the while, the federal government has been doing its very best to hide information and ignore Parliament. The access to information system has ground to a halt. All of my ATIPs have been delayed by months, and Global Affairs Canada refuses to answer. The federal government is starving the Auditor General's office of millions needed for performance audits on the $300 billion deficit in spending. It sole sourced a $105 million contract for 2 new executive jets from Bombardier. It went ahead with a secret $8.6 million renovation of Harrington Lake's so-called caretaker house, and the infrastructure minister claims privacy to hide over 20,000 missing projects worth tens of billions of dollars from Parliament. Mr. Chair, this Liberal government believes that we only deserve the information the Prime Minister deigns to give us.
We'll now go to Mr. Soroka. Mr. Soroka.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I believe we are at a pivotal point in our society, and now more than ever. Many people have told me they are concerned and feeling hopeless about the future, their jobs, the economy, and debt. I've had conversations about dictatorship, socialism, communism, and even if we still have a democratic society, because they believe they have lost their freedoms and rights. I've been asked why, at a time they can lose their freedoms that their father or grandfather have fought for. The conversations I had, not only about Canada's debt, but that of other countries around the world. They wanted to know what the plan is and how is society going to exist when the future generations will have to bear these huge financial burdens. People find themselves isolated, having financial, emotional, and physical hardships. Mr. Chair, we need true, strong leadership, not catchphrases. The words and actions we choose now will create the society that we strive towards. Thank you.
We'll now continue to Mr. Cannings. Mr. Cannings.
Mr. Speaker, today is World Oceans Day. Now, my riding is landlocked, but beautiful rivers run through it: the Okanagan, the Kettle, the Slocan, the Kootenay, and the mighty Columbia. And each year, the ocean returns to my riding in the form of salmon, sockeye, chinook, and titikwa, as they are known in the Okanagan language. Now, salmon have nourished people in this region for millennia. Tragically, their numbers collapsed in the 20th century when dams were built throughout the Columbia system, although a few managed to return each year to the Okanagan. But Upper Columbia stocks were wiped out with the construction of the Grand Coulee Dam. Now, thanks to the recovery efforts of the Okanagan Nation Alliance, salmon numbers in the Okanagan have increased dramatically in recent years, and I say lim to them. And the renegotiation of the Columbia River Treaty opens the possibility that once again salmon will return to the Upper Columbia, bringing the ocean back to the Kootenays. Lim.
Maintenant, nous allons continuer avec Madame Vignola.
We will carry on with Madame Vignola. Mr. Speaker, Beauport-Limoilou, over 3 days, lost 3 men who worked their whole lives for the well-being of their fellow citizens. On May 26th, Mr. Raymond Junot, a volunteer for over 4 decades in Beauport, left us. He earned several medals and awards recognizing his involvement, including the Lieutenant Governor's Medal in 2014. On May 27th, Mr. Jacques Langlois, Mayor of Beauport from 1984 to 2001, then City Councillor, left us. Mr. Langlois allowed Beauport to get through dark economic times in the 1980s and the beginning of the 1990s. Up till recently, people continued to call him Mr. Mayor, which showed their deep attachment to this larger-than-life man. On May 28th, it was Mr. Raymond Théry's turn to leave us. This always smiling man was so involved in organizing recreational activities in Limoilou that the Jean-Guy Drolet Community Centre bears a room in his name. To the families of these 3 men who gave so much to their community, I offer my most sincere condolences.
Mr. Lawrence.
Barbara Hillary was age 75 years old when she became the first black woman to reach the North Pole. Susan B. Anthony was 80 years old when she formed the International Women's Suffrage Alliance. Alex Trebek, at age 79 years of age, continues his philanthropic efforts despite battling cancer. Benjamin Franklin was 70 years of age when he signed the Declaration of Independence. Mother Teresa was 69 years of age when she won the Nobel Peace Prize. Nelson Mandela became president of South Africa at age 75. Mr. Chair, seniors are not a burden. They are a blessing and a gift to our community that provide wisdom, love, and kindness to our community. We need to provide seniors with the life they deserve, a life of dignity, not just because of fidelity or loyalty. We owe them all for building this great country, but also we need their wisdom more than ever during these tumultuous times. Our children need their grandparents' reassurance. Our young need their guidance, and we could all benefit from their love. Let's take a moment, Mr. Chair, and thank our seniors, not just for their sake, but for ours. Thank you.
We'll now go on to Ms. Duncan. Ms. Duncan.
Mr. Speaker, I have attended funeral after funeral of young Black men, held grieving mothers in my arms while they cried for their sons and the safety of their children, and marched time and again for change. But change hasn't happened. Our families live the differences in our schools, streets, and workplaces. Our Etobicoke North community is hurting because yet again another Black man, George Floyd, has tragically been killed. People of all backgrounds are taking part in anti-Black racism protests and vigils across Canada and around the world, are moved to show solidarity and to demand an end to systemic racism. Anti-Black racism is real. Systemic racism is real. Unconscious bias is real, and they do happen in Canada. Our community will always stand against racism, and I will always stand with our community. After hundreds of years of failed moments, this must be our watershed.
We will now proceed to questioning of ministers. Veuillez noter que nous suspendrons les délibérations.
We will suspend the deliberations every 45 minutes to allow the employees who are supporting this sitting to replace each other in all safety.
Of the opposition, Mr. Scheer.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, the government has been telling Canadians for months now that they must not gather in large groups. Now, the government, of course, has to set the right example. So can the Deputy Prime Minister tell the House whether or not the government's advice as to public large gatherings has changed?
The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and thank you for that very important question from the Leader of the Official Opposition that I have agonized over myself personally quite a lot. I think that the Leader of the Official Opposition must be referring to the many...
Now go back to the Leader of the Opposition, Mr. Scheer.
Mr. Chair, the Deputy Prime Minister herself said that she did not participate in mass gatherings last week to respect appropriate physical distancing. She said, and I quote, "As a mother, I've been struggling very hard to say to my children that they can't see their friends and they can't be in groups." So setting an example on that front is also an important one for me. She clearly thinks it would have been wrong for her to attend large mass gatherings. Does she think it was okay for Justin Trudeau to do it?
The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. The Leader of the Official Opposition has inaccurately quoted the comments that I made last week, but those comments did sincerely reflect what I think is the debate or the struggle all of us have been having about two realities. One is the absolute imperative to honor peaceful protests and for Canadians...
Back to Mr. Scheer. Mr. Scheer.
It's a simple question, Mr. Chair. Canadians have been told that they cannot visit their loved ones. They can't attend funerals. Tragically, so many Canadians have had to say goodbye to relatives over Skype. Is the Deputy Prime Minister now saying that all those precautions no longer need to be followed and people can visit relatives who are in care homes or who are facing illness?
The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister.
Let me be clear about something the Leader of the Opposition said in his previous question. I strongly support the action our Prime Minister took on Friday in joining the anti-Black racism protest. The fact that our Prime Minister was there sent an essential message to Canadians and the world. He was also wearing a mask, which is very important, and in my own comments last week...
Back to Mr. Scheer. Mr. Scheer.
It was sending a message, Mr. Speaker. It was sending a double standard message. On the one hand, this government has been telling small business owners that they have to watch their life savings disappear. They've been telling Canadians that they cannot visit their loved ones in hospital and have to say goodbye to relatives who are dying over Skype. Are all those precautions and public health advice now ended? In other words, is it okay for people to start gathering in large public gatherings, patronizing restaurants, and visiting relatives?
The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I think it is essential for us to honour the right of Canadians and indeed of people around the world to make their political views known by peacefully protesting. That it is an essential element of democracy and of people fighting for equality.
Mr. Scheer.
No one is denying that Canadians have the right to protest, but what is at question is the Prime Minister's, Justin Trudeau, on the one hand, telling Canadians that they have to follow public health advice, and on the other hand, attending a large public gathering. Is the Deputy Prime Minister now saying that Canadians should pick and choose when they listen to public health advice?
The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, in my comments last week and in the comments from our Chief Public Health Officer last week, clear advice was offered to Canadians who wanted to exercise their right to peaceful protest. The advice was to wear masks. The advice was to bring hand sanitizer. The advice was to be careful. That is very important. So is the...
Back to Mr. Scheer. Mr. Scheer.
Mr. Speaker, there have also been very clear messages as it relates to public advice. Quote, I think it's extremely important that Canadians continue to behave as we have, largely in social distancing and staying home, and keeping ourselves, our loved ones, our families, our extended families, our seniors, our healthcare workers, and our essential workers safe from rapid spread of COVID-19. Do you know who said that? Justin Trudeau said that. And yet, on the weekend, he attended a large public gathering, flying in the face of his own advice. Now, also on the weekend, a local business here in Ottawa received an $880 ticket for providing takeout food to customers who then were seated on a patio, just mere blocks away from where thousands of people were gathering in close quarters with each other. Does the government think that that ticket to that business was fair?
The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I would like to be extremely clear about our government's position, and I would like to invite the official opposition to be equally clear about its position. Now is a time in the world when all of us have to state our views. All of us have to be clear on whether we stand against anti-Black racism or not. To be silent is to be complicit. In attending that protest, in being visible for Canadians and the world, the Prime Minister sent an essential message to everyone in our country. I am...
Okay, before we go on to the next question, I just want to point out that there's a 5-minute period to ask questions. So if you can keep your questions within that 5-minute period. One thing we talked about last time was on the last question, cutting the question off when I see that half the time has been consumed before the end. I'm afraid I'm going to have to go to that because it seems that sometimes some members ask their question a lot longer than what is allotted. So I'll start enforcing that, and hopefully we won't have to enforce it, and it'll happen very well. And the other thing that was brought up was normally if there's only 15 seconds left, we won't go to another question because the amount of time is not there. Alors, je voulais seulement clarifier exactement.
I just wanted to clarify exactly how this is working so that everyone can be respecting the same rules as stipulated by the House. Madame Normandie, you have the floor. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, at the beginning of the month of April, the Bloc had predicted the situation, and unfortunately, and it does not give us pleasure to say so, we predicted exactly what's taking place now. Whereas the Bloc was in prevention and responsibility mode, the government abdicated its responsibility to protect seasonal migrant workers by imposing the burden onto farmers. He also, by the same fact, abandoned the farmers and the workers and said, you get along with your own problems. So there's talk of racism, inadequate housing, and theft of wages. Can the Minister of Agriculture look at seasonal workers as well as farmers in the eyes and say that their management of the situation has been impeccable? The Honourable Minister.
Merci.
Thank you for the question. It's a very important one. I believe this crisis has emphasized for all Canadians and all Quebecers how important the people who do essential work for us are, which absolutely includes seasonal workers in the agricultural sector. I completely agree that we must do better in protecting them and in ensuring that they have healthy and safe working conditions. Of course, that does fall to their employers, but all Canadians are responsible for this too. And I wish to say to seasonal agricultural workers, thank you so much for the important and great work that you do. We will continue. Ms. Normandin. Indeed, the work of seasonal workers and farmers' work is so important that it wasn't up to them, and it shouldn't have been up to them, to implement quarantine measures as well as oversight measures, which means that currently it's a private group, the Migrant Workers Alliance for Change, that is telling us about absolutely deplorable circumstances witnessed amongst the workers. Why isn't it the government telling us about this situation? Why is it a private organization telling us about it? The Honourable Minister. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a few answers. First of all, the role of organizations in civil society is to raise important issues. And that's an essential part of our democracy. I also wish to thank people who do that work in civil society. With respect to seasonal agricultural workers, our government is very aware of the importance of this question, and we're working in close collaboration with provinces. We're working closely with medical officers across the entire country. Madame Normandin. Unfortunately, visibly, this close collaboration for the government meant that they sent $1,500 to farmers who have to fill out a phenomenal amount of paperwork. And beyond that, the government has done absolutely nothing to ensure that public health regulations are being respected on farms and amongst migrant workers. Can the government tell us how many inspectors were deployed to ensure that that things were being done properly? The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I must say that there is an inconsistency in these questions. First, she's talking about red tape, too much paperwork for these poor employers. But on the other hand, she's saying that we need more inspectors to ensure that everything's going well for seasonal workers. I have to say that I do share this idea of hers that we'll continue. Ms. Normandin, you have 36 seconds left. I maintain, Mr. Speaker, that the government has completely abdicated its role in protecting seasonal workers and supporting our farmers, who should not have been responsible for setting up and implementing these procedures. The government did no validation after having imposed its rules. Once again, can the government tell both farmers and the workers that they have responsibly managed this crisis? Deputy Prime Minister? Absolutely, Mr. Speaker. It's a very important issue for us. We are working extremely hard to ensure that working conditions are healthy and safe. And we're working with the workers themselves. We're working with the provinces and with... We are now going to move on to Mr. Singh. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I've often said that the time is over for words and symbolic gestures, especially when the Prime Minister has the power to take concrete measures. What is the Prime Minister going to do to deal with systemic racism, anti-Black racism? The Deputy Prime Minister. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you for that important question. I must say, seeing the questions that we already heard in this chamber today, that even symbols are very important. Symbolic gestures by our Prime Minister are very important. Mr. Singh.
Not enough for the Prime Minister to take a knee. He needs to take a stand. The Prime Minister has the power to actually change things for the better. Now, will the Prime Minister commit to concrete changes, like, for example, with the RCMP, which is fully under the federal jurisdiction? Will the Prime Minister commit to ensuring there's legislation that ends racial profiling by the RCMP?
The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and I'd like to thank the member opposite for the question. I'd like to thank him personally for the very specific role that he plays in our country today on this issue. It is important. Actions are important. So is standing on the right side, and I'm very proud that's what the Prime Minister did on Friday. The member opposite points to questions we all must have today about policing, including the RCMP.
I'll go back to Mr. Singh. Mr. Singh.
People across the country, people across the world are calling on defunding the police. What they're saying is there has to be a better way that we prioritize the spending of our limited resources. They're saying that instead of spending money on policing, in many cases we should be spending that money on mental health. Will the government commit to shifting resources to mental health workers and mental health services over the police?
The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister.
The member opposite has asked some important questions about the RCMP and about policing in Canada. And let me be clear about a few things. There can be no tolerance for racism or bias of any kind within police forces in Canada. We absolutely are aware that systemic discrimination, systemic racism is real in Canada, and that unconscious bias.
We'll now go back to Mr. Singh. Mr. Singh.
DeAndre Campbell in Brampton, Regis Korchinski-Paquette in Toronto, Chantel Moore in Edmundston. All of these people were Black or Indigenous. They had mental health concerns. Police responded and they were killed. Clearly something is wrong. Will the government accept and just admit right now that we need to be spending more money on mental health workers instead of police? That mental health workers should be responding for wellness checks, not the police?
The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I will absolutely agree with the member opposite that these are tragedies, and I will agree we must act and do everything we can to ensure they are not repeated. Acting includes anti-bias training in all of our police forces, including the RCMP. Acting includes, as the Prime Minister said, body cameras for police. And acting absolutely includes focusing even more on mental health. That has been a focus for our government, and I agree so strongly with the member opposite that we must redouble our efforts. These deaths...
Back to Mr. Singh. We have 45 seconds left.
Well, thank you very much. The Liberal government has spent and continues to spend nearly $10 million a day on the RCMP. That's more in a day than the Liberal government has spent in an entire year on mental health services and funding for the Black community. Will the government fix this massive imbalance and start backing up the symbolic gestures with real concrete action?
The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, as the member opposite knows, mental health has been a focus of our government from the outset. It was something that we campaigned on in the election in the fall. As all Canadians have been suffering through coronavirus, we have redoubled our efforts there. But I agree with the member opposite. We have to do more. We have to do better. We are committed to doing that, and I hope we can work with the member opposite, with the NDP. And
we'll now go back to Mr. Scheer. Mr. Scheer.
Mr. Chair, the Deputy Prime Minister just invited the opposition to clearly state its position. So allow me to do that. Conservatives are clearly and unequivocally opposed to racism in all its forms and support calls to eliminate it. We are also clear on calling out hypocrisy. The hypocrisy of a government led by someone who wore blackface so many times that he lost count. A prime minister who fired the first Indigenous Canadian to hold that position as Minister of Justice because she refused to go along with his interference in a criminal court case. A public servant who was disciplined because they dared speak out against the government's handling of the blackface controversy. And of course, the Minister of Public Safety, the Chief of Police, who introduced card checking in the City of Toronto. So we will absolutely and unequivocally call out the hypocrisy of this government when it comes to these kinds of issues, Mr. Chair. So one more time, Canadians have been told that they have to endure great hardship, watching loved ones die alone, missing graduations, and watching their life, work, and small businesses evaporate. Is the government now telling Canadians that they can pick and choose which health advice they follow?
The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, let me start by saying that I welcome the clear and unequivocal statement against anti-black racism by the Leader of the Official Opposition. I think we in Canada need to understand that we are at a watershed moment for our country and the world. We are at a moment when we all have to take a stand. We have to take a stand either against racism, against anti-black racism. We have to say something which is painful for many of us to admit, which is that systemic discrimination exists in our country. And I do have to say to the member opposite and to members of all parties here, this is such a monumental challenge. It is a challenge that calls on us to transform our society and our country, and I think we need to work together on that challenge and not fall victim, fall prey, not minimize it and belittle it with partisan bickering.
Okay, now before we go to the next person, we're just going to take a short pause to allow our technician or technical backup to just rotate. And I notice a few people shouting time. I do want to remind them that I do have an Apple phone here that I keep time on, and I think it's very accurate. So I appreciate the help. As a disclosure, I do not have any shares in Apple. In case any of you are wondering, what's happening is what everyone sees on the bird's nest up there, or the crow's nest. That's a quick changeover, but there's also changeover down in the bowels where all the background stuff gets done, and there is some sanitization that takes place. Alors, c'est très important.
So it's very important for our personnel to be able to do their necessary work and to ensure that there are no health risks.
Parfait. Okay, la prochaine.
The next question goes to Mr. Paulus. 2.5 minutes for Mr. Paulus. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Last Friday, the Prime Minister held a large gathering on Parliament Hill with thousands of people and respected no social distancing measures, rules that he's asked Canadians to respect to fight COVID-19. Did the Prime Minister receive the go-ahead to hold this gathering? The Honourable Minister.
The government's been clear that we do not condone racism or discrimination in our country. We will speak out against anti-Black racism, anti-Indigenous racism, anti-Asian racism. Racism and discrimination exist in our country, and it's important that we stand in solidarity, and that's exactly what our government is doing. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Monsieur Paulus.
Mr. Chairman, I agree with the minister, and the government is trying to put us in a small box. But one thing is clear, we're in the midst of a COVID pandemic, and we've spent millions to try to fight this virus. And across Quebec and Canada, there are companies that are going bankrupt, as are some of my friends, and they're trying to avoid this debate. We're in the midst of a pandemic, and the government hasn't been respecting social distancing, even though the Prime Minister has been hiding away in his cottage for weeks. Did he have the permission to show up at that gathering? It's a simple question. The Honourable Minister.
The
Honourable Minister. There's a small technical delay.
Hi. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for your patience. Listen, it's very important for all people who have exercised their democratic right to protest the extreme experience of racism that many Canadians and, in fact, international citizens have faced, to remember that when they're doing so, they can do so safely. And so, as the member opposite knows, we've provided advice through the Chief Public Health Officer that if people are taking part in protests, that they do so while respecting physical distancing when possible, while wearing a mask to protect others, and ensuring that they use signs and not shouting so that we can reduce the amount of droplets that spread from person to person. Finally,
we're going to go back to Mr. Paulus. 20 seconds. So to conclude, if I understood correctly, what the health minister has just told us is that they can do this if people are wearing a mask. So thousands of people in Quebec can protest even though certain shows won't be able to take place. The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, it's clear that, in fact, Canada is joining citizens around the world in fighting the pandemic of racism, which, as you know, also equally has terrible health effects on people's health. As I've said, the Chief Public...
We'll now continue with a question from Ms. Bergen. Ms. Bergen.
Thank you very much, Chair. On May 25th, the Prime Minister, together with the help of the NDP, shut down Parliament, replaced it with this committee. Next week, parliamentarians are going to be asked to approve $87 billion worth of spending with only 4 hours worth of debate and oversight. $87 billion of spending. Now, it's clear from the Prime Minister's actions that he believes that it's okay to gather in a public setting if the cause is worthy. I believe, and I think most Canadians would believe, that Parliament is a worthy setting. Why won't this government recall Parliament? We can wear masks, we can be responsible so that we can provide proper oversight so committees can reconvene and we can do the really important work of democracy in overseeing this spending.
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I thank my colleague for her questions. Regarding the estimates, Mr. Speaker, as she knows, there will be those hours, 4 hours on the 17th, but questions, since the estimates are public, they can ask questions today, tomorrow, the day after, on Thursday, on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, whenever they want, because we're allowed to ask questions on anything, including the estimates, because they're public, Mr. Speaker. And on top of that, committees are meeting, so they can also ask questions during those committee sittings.
Ms. Bergen.
Well, I'd like to just inform the minister that they do not have a majority government and that Parliament is still part of our democracy. And so this COVID committee does not replace Parliament. And it's sad to see the arrogance and the hypocrisy of Justin Trudeau as well as this Liberal government. Now, here we've seen an area where the government has been really unaccountable, and that's in infrastructure spending. The Minister of Infrastructure, Minister McKenna, said that they have funded 52,000 projects, but the parliamentary budget officer said there's 20,000 that are unaccounted for. So we've asked the minister, will she make public the 20,000 projects that they're trying to hide from Canadians?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, there's a simple answer to the honourable member's question, and it was written by the Conservatives themselves. Look at the 10-year agreement that the Conservatives signed on the gas tax fund in 2014. It does not require provinces to provide detailed reporting on each project or its outcomes. In fact, Quebec isn't required to do project-by-project reporting at all. We'll be looking for more accountability when we renegotiate the gas tax funds, for example, by requiring provinces and municipalities to publicly publish project details on their website. But in the meantime, it's quite something for the Conservatives to attack the accountability of a program that they negotiated.
Mr. Speaker, it's the parliamentary budget officer that has stated that there has been projects that money has been spent on, but they don't know where it's gone. $10 billion, the government says they've spent on infrastructure. The parliamentary budget officer says only $5 billion. So, Mr. Speaker, the government has an opportunity to be transparent, and they need to table those projects. Mr. Speaker, another area where they've been holding back, and that is on the Auditor General's ability to provide oversight for this massive amount of spending. So when the Conservatives put money into infrastructure, when we stimulated the economy during one of the great recessions, we put into legislation the Auditor General providing oversight and provided funding. Will the Liberals provide funding to the Auditor General and let the Auditor General audit all of the spending that's happened over the last number of months?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, first I would like to offer my congratulations to the new Auditor General for her appointment. I'd also like, on behalf of the government, to offer her our full support and collaboration. Her role is essential to our democracy, and we are all eager to work with her. The Auditor General is more than welcome to share her concerns directly with the government, and I can assure her that my colleague, the Minister of Finance, and the Minister, the President of the Treasury Board, and all of us will take these concerns into account.
30 seconds left.
Ongoing pattern here, Mr. Chair. The Liberals don't want to be held accountable. They've shut down Parliament, even though it's clear the Prime Minister will show up for gatherings that he thinks are important. They're not funding the Auditor General, and they're not being transparent on money that they've spent on infrastructure. So usually this does end up being some sort of a Liberal scandal. Mr. Speaker, why don't the Liberals just be transparent, recall Parliament, give the Auditor General the funding that she needs?
The Honourable Minister.
She can't see me.
The government actually worked with the Auditor General to increase funding levels in 2018-2019 after they were cut by the previous Conservative government. And thanks to this funding, their office was able to add the equivalent of 38 new full-time staff to the team. So we're totally committed to working with the Auditor General and her staff on the important...
We'll now move on to Mr. Sweet. Mr. Sweet.
Thank you, Chair. Since April, there's been a notable increase in the number of political executions in Iran, while the world's attention was focused on COVID-19. What interventions has the Liberal government made with the Iranian regime to strongly condemn these increasing atrocities?
Minister.
My apologies, Mr. Speaker. I was on mute and just getting up here. I want to thank the honourable member for that question. Our government will always stand up for human rights across the world, and we will continue to do that work for Canada and for Canadians. Thank you.
Go to Mr. Sweet. Mr. Sweet.
Well, Chair, in June 2018, my honourable colleague Garnet Genuis tabled a motion that was passed by this House to immediately list the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps as a terrorist entity. That's been 2 years now. What's the holdup?
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I want to thank the honourable member for his question. I want to assure him that human rights is absolutely a top priority for this government, and we will always stand up for it.
Sweet.
Mr. Chair, as in all of the questions that I've posed in the last couple of sittings, there's all kinds of platitudes, but absolutely no action taken. So I'll give him another chance. What about the Magnitsky Act? When will we use the Magnitsky Act to sanction the leaders in the Iranian regime?
Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I want to thank the honourable member. We condemn the Iranian regime for its abuse of human rights, and I want to assure him that standing up for human rights is what we will do, what we will always continue to do. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Sweet, Mr. Sweet.
My real concern, Chair, is that we've lost our way entirely as far as human rights on the international stage. What exactly is this UN security seat costing us?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I want to assure the member that the work that Canada does around the world in global trade and in our relationships on the international stage is...
Now go back to Mr. Sweet. Mr. Sweet.
What concrete steps has the government taken in the last 2 weeks to help Hong Kongers?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, our government has been clear. Our government stands with our allies, making a strong statement expressing our deep concern.
Back to Mr. Sweet. Mr. Sweet.
Thank you, Chair. The Burmese government told the world that they were heading towards democracy and gladly took millions of dollars from Canadian taxpayers. They continue to persecute the Rohingya and other minorities. What actions will this government take to increase the Magnitsky Law on the leaders of that regime?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I want to assure the honourable colleague that our government will always stand against human rights and continue to do that, and will always do that. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Chair, for 14 years, Hussein Salil has been imprisoned in China, and now the two Michaels. What exactly are they doing to get their release?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the two Michaels, our Canadians, are our absolute top priority. We will continue to work tirelessly to secure their immediate release and to stand up for them as a Canadian.
Now go back to Mr. Sweet. Mr. Sweet.
Chair, the IOC promotes the role of the Games in advancing human rights. Given the human rights record of the Chinese Communist regime, many are calling for a boycott of the 2022 Olympics. What is the government's position on this?
Mr. Speaker, our government will always stand up for human rights. We have a record of doing this, and we will continue to do this.
Mr. Sweet.
Chair, what promises has the Prime Minister made to other nations to have his long-shot security seat confirmed?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I think everyone here will agree that Canada's leadership on the international stage and having an important voice, standing up for human rights, standing up for predictable global supply.
We'll go back to Mr. Sweet. Mr. Sweet, we have 30 seconds.
I'll try one more time. The House 2 years ago passed a motion to immediately list the IRGC as a terrorist entity. When will that happen? Why has it taken 2 full years?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, our government have strong sanctions against Iran. We stand against the human rights abuses. We will always stand up against human rights today and always.
Now go to Ms. Rood. Ms. Rood.
Mr. Chair, the Canada-US border is still closed for non-essential travel, which is splitting up spouses and splitting families apart. Families cannot be reunified due to the government's restrictions. Even if someone can comply with all of the health regulations, why will this government, and the current travel restrictions, why do the current travel restrictions not allow immediate family members of Canadian citizens to be reunited in Canada?
Deputy Prime Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I'd like to thank the member opposite for that important question. As the Prime Minister announced today, we are expanding the understanding of what counts as essential travel into Canada. And as the member opposite points out, immediate family members of Canadians and of permanent residents will be allowed to come into Canada, provided it is a journey of lasting duration.
Now go back to Ms. Rood. Ms. Rood.
Mr. Chair, the Liberal list of banned weapons is getting longer and longer with no rhyme or reason to it. The firearms reference table is changed weekly, with the RCMP interpreting it behind closed doors, leaving firearms owners and vendors guessing. Firearm purchases are now being made and even being deemed illegal retroactively. So when will the minister clarify the text of their order in council so that firearms owners and vendors don't have to operate in the dark?
The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, if I may, I just want to first finish my answer to the first question, because it is very important that all Canadians, all permanent residents, and now their immediate family members coming into Canada will be subject to a mandatory quarantine order. I just want to make very clear to them and to all Canadians that that must be followed. It will be enforced. And I do want to thank their premiers on their collaboration around these border rules.
Go back to Ms. Rood. Ms. Rood.
Mr. Chair, she didn't answer my previous question. Will the minister answer the question, please?
The Honourable Minister.
Yeah, for sure. The border regulations are important. I wanted to be sure there was clarity on that. When it comes to the ban on military...
We'll go back to Ms. Rood. Ms. Rood.
She still doesn't want to answer the question, but I'll move along. Maybe she can't answer it. Mr. Chair, farmers are having a tough year with increased expenses and production challenges. With COVID-19 and its restrictions on the economy ongoing, farmers are still facing market disruptions. We've heard from countless farmers that agri-stability just doesn't help them. Will the minister announce meaningful BRM changes before the July 3rd deadline?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to assure my colleague that we are working hard to improve the business risk management programs. But since these programs have been changed by the previous government with significant cuts, it's very hard now to get the agreement of all the provinces to increase the financing. Thank you.
Ms. Rood.
It was your government that negotiated the last deal. Anyway, Mr. Chair, Liberal mistakes have already cost our soy and canola farmers export markets. When Australia spoke out against China, they were slapped with 80% tariffs on their barley. Now, Canadian ginseng farmers are unable to sell their crop to China. Has the minister spoken with her Chinese counterpart to rectify the situation? And what concrete actions will this Liberal government take to help these farmers?
Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Restoring full market access for canola seed exports to China is a top priority for us. The issues faced by the canola sector in the last year underscores the critical importance of diversification to reduce risk of market closures or over-reliance on a single export market.
At Industry Committee, my colleague Michelle Rempel put forward a motion to study the prevalence of foreign buyouts of Canadian-owned companies that are being hit hard by the pandemic. The non-partisan motion passed despite all the Liberals voting against it. Mr. Chair, keeping national security in mind, why is this government so reluctant to safeguard all Canadian interests and protect Canadian companies?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we have clear provisions to protect Canadians under the Investment Canada Act. The net benefit analysis is there to make sure that vulnerable Canadian companies are given the benefit through this process. And we make sure when it comes to national security as well, all such transactions are subject to assessments.
Now we'll go on to Ms. Rood, a 10-second question.
Mr. Chair, last week the member from Kingston was reportedly calling on the government to make information on the internet surrounding COVID-19 accurate. This isn't the first time that the government has been toying with the idea of truth arbitration. I'd like to give this government a chance to set the record straight. Will this government be regulating content on the internet, yes or no?
Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we have very clear provisions in place to make sure that when it comes to online content, that it's consistent with Canadian laws.
Now go on to Mr. Shields. Mr. Shields.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Can the minister inform the House what the average livestock price insurance premium for a cow-calf operator was a year ago?
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we are supporting our farmers in different ways, and recently for the meat sector, we have opened the Agri-Recovery Program to support.
Go back to Mr. Shields. Mr. Shields.
Can the minister inform the House what the insurance rate is now?
The Honourable Minister.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. J'ai bien compris.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair. I've correctly understood that the cost of insurance for cattle has increased substantially in the current context. But we have set up various.
The House, by what percentage the insurance rate has increased since the pandemic?
Honorable Ministre.
The Honourable Minister. Thank you, Mr. Chair. As I was saying, we have already implemented.
Sorry, Mr. Speaker, for the confusion in the language. So we have put in place an agri-recovery program to support the beef sector, as well as the $77.5 million.
We'll go back to Mr. Shields. Mr. Shields.
Can the minister inform the House how many head of cattle JBS and Cargill meatpacking plants process per day at full capacity?
L'Honorable Ministre.
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So as I said, we are supporting the meat sector in a significant way. We have put in place the Agri-Recovery Fund with the collaboration of the provinces. It means $50 million in addition to the processing funds.
To Mr. Shields.
Can the minister inform the House at what capacity these plants are currently operating at?
L'Honorable Ministre.
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So once again, we have put in place a fund of $77.5 million to support the food processing.
To Mr. Shields. Mr. Shields.
Can the minister tell what percentage of cattle in feedlots are currently being sold to processing plants?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I know the meat sector is having a hard time because of the COVID, because their employees have to work in.
Go back to Mr. Shields. Mr. Shields.
Feedlots are full. How much longer will the money the federal government committed to the set-aside program sustain feedlot operators?
L'Honorable Ministre.
The Honourable Minister.
We are supporting the processing plants with a $77.5 million fund.
Shields.
How is the amount of money determined to be enough to support our beef supply chain?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So once again, there is more than one program under the business risk management programs. There's also the agri-stability, the agri.
To Mr. Shields.
Seed potato growers, that's seed potato growers in Alberta, don't qualify for the surplus food purchase program under the federal criteria. No seeds, no potatoes. Will the government correct this oversight in Alberta?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm very well aware of the situation. Actually, I've spoken to the industry once again this morning, and we have all the business risk management programs in place, and we are working hard to fill some gaps.
Mr. Shields.
Thank you for that one. I appreciate that one. Now back to the insurance on the ag stability. So when we talk about the insurance rate, if you got an insurance rate that increased by 400%, would you think that's a program that you would buy into?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So we are supporting our farmers through different programs. The provincial governments also do support through different programs, and these are, you can see some of this support to buying insurance in other provinces.
Mr. Shields, we have 34 seconds left.
Thank you. I appreciate it. We've talked about ag stability a number of times. We've talked about the shortcomings in it. There's very few people that buy into it. The agriculture sector is just over 30%. Why are only 30% plus just buying into this program?
Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have to remind my colleague that when they were in the government, they cut $400 million to these programs, and these programs are cost shared with the provinces. So it's not easy to get all the provinces back and to find an agreement, but we're working hard on that.
Nous allons maintenant continuer avec.
We will now go to Mr. Terrien. Thank you, Mr. Chair. First of all, I wanted to tell you that I'm going to be sharing my time with the the member for Joliette. Last week, the government spoke of offering to the provinces a $14 billion transfer to help them get through COVID and prepare for the economic recovery.
Attendez.
Hold on. The provinces immediately responded that that was largely insufficient, but also that money was going under provincial jurisdiction. The government didn't hide from that fact and said, yes, that goes under provincial jurisdiction areas, and we're going to impose conditions. So the provinces, including Quebec, the provinces and Quebec are at the front lines of this battle. They're the ones who know what the problems are. They're the ones who should set their own priorities. Why not simply transfer the funds to the provinces and trust them? Quite simply. The Honourable Minister. Madam Chair, thank you. And thank you for that important question. We agree that the $14 billion that the Prime Minister spoke of last Friday, that $14 billion, and I want to emphasize that number because $14 billion is a substantial sum of money. This money was offered by the Prime Minister to the provinces, and it's very important because we, the federal government, understand how important it is to relaunch the economy and open it up again. We understand that we have to have a healthy and safe reopening that is going to hold and succeed. We also, of course, understand how important it is to closely collaborate with all provinces, which, of course, absolutely includes Quebec. Predatory federalism. They're taking $14 billion, which is Quebec and Canadian taxpayers' money, and say, look, we're going to take this $14 billion, but we're going to impose conditions to make sure that you're spending it properly. This falls under provincial and Quebec jurisdiction. You don't know anything about that. Don't try and start thinking about what they should be doing with this money. And they don't know anything. It's not their area of expertise. Trust the provinces and Quebec. You should be doing that instead of being predatory with Quebec taxpayers' money. There's really no time for the answer. Okay, a very brief answer, a very short answer. Just a little. Madam Chair, I don't think that offering $14 billion is predatory. I think that offering $14 billion is cooperation. And we are proud of that.
Monsieur Sainte-Marie.
Mr. Sainte-Marie, thank you. Madam Chair, it's the way they're going about it that is a problem. This House will rise in 2 weeks. Is the government going to be presenting an economic update between now and then? The Honourable Minister. Madam Chair, I would like to say that it's very important to be transparent with Canadians. And of course, our approach is going to be transparent every day. Once the situation has stabilized, we will be in a better position to explain our economic situation. Madam Chair, if the Minister had just said yes, it would have been a great start. The economy is starting to, the economic reboot has begun. We're gradually moving towards recovery, so we really need a status report, which includes an overview of our economic situation, as well as the government's emergency measures and its intention to prolong them or not during the summer, and how. This also includes working scenarios on the economic recovery. The government, as the Minister said, must be transparent. Why is the government not presenting us with an update? I do not understand. Is the government afraid? Does the government have something to hide? Please explain. Honourable Minister. Madam Chair, I would like to thank the member. It's a very important question. We wish to have a transparent approach. We have more information for Canadians, and soon we will be able, as the situation stabilizes, we will be able to explain our economic situation to Canadians. Mr. Sainte-Marie, thank you, Madam Chair. Does that mean, does soon mean over the next 2 weeks? Minister? Thank you, Madam Chair. As I said, we are considering our economy's stability. Of course, it's important to be transparent with about our situation. Mr. Sainte-Marie, you have 30 seconds, well, 15 seconds if you want to have an answer. Thank you, Madam Chair. As you say, very short, so I tried, but it was too short. So we've been asking for this for over a month. Over a month ago, the PBO was urging the government to quickly table an economic update. It would be it would really suit us if that was over the next 2 weeks. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. I do understand the question. And of course, every day we are transparent with our investments. And I completely agree. It's absolutely necessary to be transparent with about our economic situation. Once the situation has stabilized sufficiently for us to be able to provide more details. Mr. Zuberi.
Madam Speaker, I'll be sharing my time with the member from Thunder Bay, Rainy River. Over the last 2 weeks, from Halifax to Vancouver, Calgary to Whitehorse, Canadians have been seized with a Black Lives Matter movement. Yesterday evening, in my own riding of Pierrefonds-Dollard, Kimba Mitchell and the West Island Black Community Association organized a virtual town hall attended by 500. Earlier in the day, I took a knee at a Montreal vigil organized by Denberg Reed for the Montreal Community Cares Foundation. On social media, grandmothers, grandfathers, aunts, uncles, parents, and young people are all saying we must do much more to confront anti-Black racism and systemic discrimination. Films like 13th, which explain the link between racial inequality and over-incarceration, are trending online. Everyone's asking, how can we move beyond allyship to concrete action? Studies show Black Canadians and Indigenous peoples aren't any more likely to commit a crime than the general population. However, over-policing and over-incarceration of these communities is well documented. My question to the Deputy Prime Minister, through you, Madam Chair, in the spirit of moving us forward, is can the government inform this House what measures are being taken to address over-incarceration of Indigenous and Black Canadians while working to collect and publicly report upon race-based data?
The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Let me start by thanking the member for Pierrefonds-Dollard for his question and for his tireless advocacy on these important issues. Madam Speaker, we know that Indigenous peoples and Black Canadians are overrepresented in our criminal justice system, and that needs to change. We are making important investments to support the reintegration of Indigenous offenders into their communities and advancing restorative justice approaches, while strengthening agreements for healing lodges which incorporate Indigenous values, traditions, and beliefs. We are also providing Black Canadian offenders with services aimed at supporting their reintegration, including support for career building and mentorship, engaging community members to provide training, and funding community organizations. Furthermore, we will invest an additional $11 million to ensure all enforcement and securities agencies have access to bias-free training and implement mandatory training on unconscious bias for all judges in Canada. We know that having better, more precise, and more consistent tracking, collection, and measurement of data is needed, and that we have a lot more work to do.
For Thunder Bay, Rainy River.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I know at the outset of this pandemic, a big concern of our governments was the possibility that we could, in places, run out of ventilators, as tragically occurred in northern Italy. Now, that hasn't happened. Hopefully, it won't happen. But the pandemic is far from being over, and certainly a lot of people are predicting further waves to come. Now, I don't think we're going to run out of ventilators because we start to mass produce them here in Canada. And I want to give a big shout out of congratulations to the Bombardier plant here in Thunder Bay, which as of last week started mass producing portable ventilators. Fantastic job. Keep up the good work. I also want to congratulate O2 in Brampton, who was part of the same endeavor. Now, another big concern of mine is a longtime emergency room doctor, and I know this is a shared concern of our government, is PPEs. And I want to ask a question specifically about N95 masks. Now, last week in The Lancet, there was a big meta-analysis which pretty clearly seemed to indicate that for most healthcare workers, N95 masks are superior to surgical masks at preventing transmission of disease. Now, I know this is area of primarily provincial jurisdiction, but can our relevant ministries please tell us what we are doing to ensure our healthcare workers that they will get those N95 masks? Thank you.
Honourable Minister.
Madam President, Canadian businesses of all sizes right across the country have truly stepped up to protect Canadians. Since the outset of the pandemic and the launch of Canada's plan to mobilize industry, domestic manufacturing has ramped up significantly with deliveries underway of gowns, masks, respirators, ventilators. We've been working collaboratively with the provinces and territories to ensure that we can fulfill all requests of PPE needed by our frontline healthcare workers. We've so far distributed over 2.7 million N95 masks and hundreds of ventilators, along with millions of units of other critically important supplies. Our absolute priority is to make sure that our frontline healthcare workers have the supplies they need to protect themselves and their patients. We are buying to meet Canada's needs in the short and the long term in order to be ready for any eventuality. Thank you so much.
The honourable member for Cloverdale-Langley City.
Mr. Speaker, 4 weeks ago, I received a message that my niece's wedding was no longer going ahead as planned this summer due to COVID-19. Does Minister Hadji believe that wedding celebrations continue to pose a serious health risk to the community?
How are those the same things?
What?
Mr. Speaker, I assume the member is...
What? Just a moment, please. What happened here? Skip Mr. Harris because he's having technical difficulties. That's why we went to Ms. Jensen. Yes, I'm sorry. I should have explained before. Please proceed.
Shall I start over?
Yes.
Maybe that'd be easier.
Maybe better start over again because they're all confused.
Going to restart. You have the floor, Ms. Jensen.
4 weeks ago, I received a message that my niece's wedding was no longer going ahead as planned this summer due to COVID-19. Does Minister Hadji believe that wedding celebrations continue to pose a serious health risk to the community?
Honourable Minister of Health.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. And I would just like to remind the member that it is very important to follow the direction of local public health advice. As we know, it is different across the country depending on the epidemic in that particular region. I have great faith and also a great respect for the hardworking local public health officers and public health nurses. And I want to thank them for being so thoughtful in the advice they are giving to the people in their own communities in terms of how to protect.
Ms. Jensen.
Recently, I attended an outdoor Eid ceremony and the first outdoor call to prayer in Canada. Only a handful of people were given permission to attend due to COVID-19. Does the minister believe that outdoor religious gatherings continue to pose a serious health risk to the community?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. What is clear is that crowded situations where people are very close to one another, where they are prolonged contact, and where they have no ability to physically distance, does pose an elevated risk for COVID-19. And that's why we reminded all people who took part in the many protests across the country this weekend to monitor themselves very closely for symptoms. And I would remind all people who have attended any any gatherings to make sure that at any first sign of any symptom that they contact their local public health office.
Point of order. Point of order. Yes. Yes. Please.
Just clarify that time will not be deducted, that time will be re-added to Ms. Jensen's time.
We will give her the 10 seconds. Yes.
But not that
yes.
bit of time right there.
It's at the very beginning. Ms. Jensen, the floor is yours.
3 weeks ago, a local high school made plans to hold a drive-by graduation in a large parking lot with arrangements for all attendees to remain in their cars. Unfortunately, the restrictions did not permit it due to COVID-19. Does the minister believe that drive-by graduations actually pose a serious health risk to the community?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. What the minister believes is that our local public health officers and health officials are working incredibly hard to make sure that they protect the health of the Canadians that they serve. I also believe that it's important that we follow that local public health advice, and that when we are gathered, that if we are in a gathering, that we make sure we monitor ourselves for symptoms and report to public health should we suspect that we are at all ill.
Jensen.
My niece gave birth to a beautiful baby boy. No visitors were allowed in the hospital due to COVID-19. Does the minister believe that visiting new mothers in the hospital continues to pose a serious health risk to the community?
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. It appears that the member opposite is not understanding my response. And my response is that we have incredibly hard-working public health officers and medical officers of health who are balancing the needs for Canadians to continue their lives in some sense of normality with the needs to protect them from the risk of contracting COVID-19. I stand with those public health officers as they make those incredibly difficult decisions every single day. And I also thank Canadians for the sacrifices that they're making to protect their neighbors, their friends, and their loved ones.
This summer, the annual Cloverdale Rodeo Parade in my riding has been cancelled due to COVID-19. Does the minister believe that outdoor parades continue to pose a serious health risk to the community?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the measures that are in place in communities are...
Walker, you gotta go
voices.
What was that? Walker. We have a little technical problem.
Remind everybody to mute.
Can everybody mute their mics, please? Est-ce que vous pouvez tous vous mettre en sourdine?
Please mute your mics so that we can hear the minister.
Is the minister back?
I'd go with Ms. Jensen. I'd recommend.
We know that people are public health advice to protect their loved ones, and I want to thank all Canadians for continuing to do so.
Dr. Tam recently stated that attending a protest with hundreds of masked and unmasked people walking through town is safe as long as they don't yell too loudly. Does the minister concur with Dr. Tam that large crowds of protesters gathered in downtown streets does not pose a serious threat to the health of our community, as long as they don't yell too loudly?
Honourable Minister.
Madam Speaker, I think it's inappropriate for the member opposite to put words in Dr. Tam's mouth. She did not say that attending a large gathering was safe. She said that when people were exercising their democratic right to protest racist conditions that exist across the world, that in fact there were ways to do so more safely, and she advised that people not yell loudly and to carry signs so as to reduce the risk of spreading droplets among one another.
If Canadians are allowed to take a knee in a large protest, they should be allowed to take a knee in prayer. If we do not see a COVID-19 outbreak in 7 to 10 days following these protests, will the minister commit to allowing Canadians from all faith communities back to their places of worship for open-air services, as long as they don't sing too loudly?
The Honourable Minister, 10 seconds.
The member opposite is very confused about who actually places restrictions on local activities. In fact, the federal government does not have any jurisdiction nor has put any restrictions on people's activities in terms of what is and isn't allowed in a particular jurisdiction. I would refer her back to her local public health unit, and she can ask those questions of her local public health unit. It is very important to follow local public health advice, which will be advising members of communities on how to...
We are now going to Mr. Harris. We have him back online. Mr. Harris.
Thank you. Mr. Speaker, like most Canadians, I'm shocked, horrified, and angry after seeing the video of an RCMP officer using his truck door to attack and knock down a 22-year-old Inuk man in Nunavut. The officer is then joined by several other members as they jump on him and pin him to the ground. An outrageous act of brutality. Sadly, this is not news to the people in the north. Nunavut's legal aid agency says that Inuit, especially women, suffer systemic police abuse, including excessive violence and persistent racism. What is the Minister of Public Safety doing to eliminate Indigenous racism and police misconduct within the RCMP?
The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister.
I would like to thank the member for that extremely important question. Regardless of where they live, all Canadians deserve to feel safe in their communities. That very much includes our Inuit community, and it includes all Indigenous Canadians. I am aware of the graphic video that is circulating online. It's shocking and deeply disturbing. Immediately upon review, the officer was removed from the community and an independent investigation was launched. We all must and will do better.
Mr. Harris.
Mr. Speaker, the Inuit in Nunavut live with mistrust and fear of the RCMP. They exist to serve and protect all Canadians, including this man. Yet this officer appears to act in front of other officers without any fears of repercussions. The legal aid allegations include repeated and systemic instances of unnecessary violence in the 25 communities policed by the RCMP in Nunavut. The systemic problem requires a systemic solution. What is the minister's systemic plan to address this clear evidence of over-policing and abuse?
The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. And let me truly thank the member opposite for raising this essential issue in this House. He is absolutely right that systemic racism exists in our country, and that does require a systemic solution. In order to resolve this, we need to acknowledge the problem. We need to talk about it in this House, which is what we are doing. We are absolutely committed to doing whatever it takes to ensure that these behaviors do not happen in the future. The Prime Minister today spoke about his own commitment to work with the premiers on body cameras. That is one step far from the only.
Mr. Harris. Mr. Harris, just a moment. We don't have sound. Just a moment.
Thank you. I think we have it now.
Yes, we.
It's certainly good to acknowledge that the Indigenous racism exists in our police force, and particularly our national police force, which has been, in fact, policing Indigenous people for nearly 150 years with its predecessor. We've had in 2018, 2019, nearly 3,000 complaints about the conduct of RCMP officers to the Review and Complaints Commission, a 13% increase over the previous year. And excessive use of force, one of the most common substantive complaints. What does the government and the minister plan to do to address this rise in complaints and solve the problem that we currently have in the RCMP, the National Police Force?
The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister.
Madam Speaker, I'm sorry. I would like to thank the member opposite for drawing attention to this very important issue. The member said in one of his questions that this is a long-standing issue that Indigenous communities, that Inuit communities, that legal aid lawyers have been pointing to for a very long time. And I have to say, I am very aware of that because throughout my childhood, my mother was a legal aid lawyer in northern Alberta. And I can still remember some of the horrific stories she told us about the abuse of her clients. It is long past time for us to ensure that all Indigenous people in Canada, that all Inuit people in Canada do not fear the police, do not fear the RCMP, but see Canada's police as serving them and working for them, which is their job.
Mr. Harris, you have about 10 seconds.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I don't know what kind of a question I can ask in 10 seconds, but I can say that we've had 150 years of the RCMP imposing race-based laws on Indigenous people, and something very, very significant has got to be done to change that. And I think we have to treat it as a crisis and try to find a crisis-based solution for this systemic racism.
We are now going to go on a pause to allow our technical experts to do the changes necessary. So we are suspended for a few minutes, for a few seconds. For Battle River Crowfoot.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Simple question. Do the Liberals believe that access to information is an essential service in Canada?
The Honourable Minister. I'd like the member to repeat the question, please.
Sure, and I would ask that my time also be restarted. Simple question again. Do the Liberals believe that access to information is an essential service in Canada?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I failed to understand the question the first time around. Of course, the answer is yes. Access to information is absolutely key in all circumstances, normal circumstances, and absolutely essential in the very emergency circumstances in which we are living currently.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Actions speak much louder than words. In fact, we heard in committee last week that Infrastructure Minister Catherine McKenna refused to reveal whether or not 20,000 projects even exist. And the Information Commissioner has launched an investigation into the government's processing of access to information requests, also known as ATIPs. Why doesn't the government back up their words with action when it comes to ATIPs?
President of the Treasury Board.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Again, I would like to assure all members of this House that access to information is absolutely key to the working of our institutions. It's also absolutely key for Canadians to understand the impact of these important investments we're making to help them go through the crisis.
The Honourable Member for Battle River Crowfoot.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is stunning hypocrisy. The Liberals claim to care about transparency, but like almost every aspect of the way they govern, their words simply do not represent reality. And no number of deliverology consultants seem to be able to fix that. It's always do as I say, not as I do. And that is no more true than the case than transparency and improving access to information processes. Over the last 5 years, outcomes for transparency have not improved, and in the midst of the COVID-19 pandemic, they have gone from bad to worse. According to the government's own ATIP website, only 12 departments or agencies out of more than 250 that are subject to the Access to Information Act are currently accepting ATIPs. The question is simple. Was Minister Duclos aware that about 95% of government agencies and departments are not accepting ATIPs during a time when they have nearly doubled government spending and shut down Parliament?
Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I would first like to thank the public servants who are working extremely hard in the context of emergency circumstances, which have big impacts both in their personal and in their professional lives. All the public servants that I know of understand as well that their work is important, not only in terms of the emergency, but also in terms of the transparency of their actions. So I would like to congratulate them and thank them, and I would like to encourage them to do the essential work that they do, and including the work that they do in providing essential information to Canadians.
Thank you very much, and we thank the public servants. It's the Liberals that have a problem with accountability. There are reports that ministerial staff have indicated that submitted ATIPs will simply not be followed up on. This is not only a stunning lack of transparency, it's also in contravention to the Act and is illegal and goes against their own Bill C-58. Has the minister issued a directive, or has TBS issued direction to the department regarding how essential it is to ensure that access or ATIPs requests are fulfilled?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you for the opportunity to thank also someone else, the Information Commissioner, that I had the chance of working with and talking to in the last few weeks. We have both agreed very quickly on the importance of public information, making it easier for all Canadians, including members of Parliament, to have access to the important information that they need in the current crisis. I will keep working with all members of the House and with other colleagues across the government to make sure that this information is easily and freely accessible.
Once again, the words simply do not represent the reality, even what the Access to Information Commissioner has said. So I'd encourage the minister to listen more carefully. Is the minister aware that provinces don't seem to have the same issue when it comes to ATIPs that the federal government does?
The Honourable Minister for 25 seconds.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I have about 25 seconds again to thank all public servants for the work that they do, to remind everyone that we are both in a situation of urgency, but also in a situation in which transparency of our actions is important, and I look forward to working with all members of the House to make sure that this work continues.
L'honorable député de... The Honourable Member for Bellechasse-Lévis, Mr. Blaney. Thank you very much, Madam Chair. My question, once again, we've learned that Liberals are abandoning the Quebec region. They're offering regional assistance. Now we're taking $30 million of that fund and sending it to Montreal. How is it that the Liberals are turning our regions into second-rate ones? Thank you, Madam Chair. The region is very important, which is why we've doubled the budgets for all the country's economic development agencies to support that region as well. But the pandemic has hit Montreal harder, so we need to be there to meet needs. Mr. Blaney, you're robbing Peter to pay Paul. I have a question for the Heritage Minister, Madam Chair. There's a key event taking place in Niagara Falls, and it's the O Canada show. How is it that, despite the millions of dollars in funding that being announced by the minister, that show cannot go on? The Honourable Minister. Thank you, Madam Chair. I thank my colleague for his question. As you know, we announced a $500 million emergency fund that is beginning to be deployed. The phase one and the portal will be up in the coming days, which will allow organizations across the country to register and apply for funding.
We find ourselves in a historic situation, and a crisis that we haven't seen for over 100 years. So it may take a little longer for us to deploy our programs, but we're working very hard to do so, Madam Chair. Mr. Blamey, for over 2 months, our cultural artists and cultural producers are lacking resources. The minister keeps making announcements, but we're not seeing it yet. When will that funding be offered to our artists to support them, especially in the context where when the temporary emergency measures for financial support will end? Sorry, I was just waiting for the chair to give me the floor. Yes, please go ahead. Thank you, Madam Chair. I profoundly disagree with my colleague, Madam Chair. Our government has invested $2.5 billion to help the arts and culture sector, as well as our artists. We did a great deal. We must do more. I'm well aware of that, and we're working on it, Madam Chair. Mr. Blaney. Madam Chair, last May 26th, the Agriculture Minister announced that she only wanted to create 700 new jobs to support our youth in agriculture, whereas we need 10,000 jobs in Quebec. When will those positions become available and jobs become available for our farmers? Madam Minister. Thank you, Madam Chair. The jobs are available. The interested producers and farmers can apply. All they have to do is go to Agriculture Canada's website, ac.gc.ca. Mr. Blaney, we've heard that it's over 50 business days to make a decision. The summer will be over by then. What is the minister waiting for to name people or hand those jobs to people? Farmers are waiting. What is the minister waiting to send people out into the fields where we need them? Minister. Thank you, Madam Chair. I assure you that it's the maximum minute when it comes to the administrative the administrative time required, but 50 days is the upper limit. Mr. Blaney, we need those jobs now, and we need those people now. My next question is for the Minister of Public Safety. Does he recognize that his political and partisan position on firearms is made in complete disregard to public safety? The Honourable Minister. Thank you for the question. I must say that I don't completely agree with this question. I know that Conservatives do not agree with us, that it's important now to control firearms. That is a true political difference and policy difference between us. I must say that as a woman especially, we made the right decision and have taken the right position. Mr. Blaney, well, we agree on an efficient and effective regime, but ineffective and inefficient ones that go after honest people, no. Why not follow the advice of the chiefs of police, for example, who say that to attack, we should be fighting street gangs and criminal gangs and organized crime rather than honest citizens? The Honourable Minister, Deputy Prime Minister. I am very pleased that the MP quoted the chiefs of police, because I also have quotes from the chiefs of police. Mark Saunders
said on Friday, May 1st, taking military assault-style rifles off the streets contributes to public safety. I support any step that helps prevent the circulation of these weapons.
We are now going to Mr. Morrison.
Madam Chair, thank you. In my riding in Kootenay, Columbia, there are several gunsmiths who are in possession of specialized guns worth in excess of $20,000. According to the minister, these collector guns are now illegal. Madam Chair, does the minister plan to buy back these collectibles at a low price, or will the minister be buying them back at their full value with taxpayer dollars?
The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister.
Madam Speaker, let me be very clear. What is illegal and was illegal from the date of the OIC was the sale of these assault-style weapons. And I must say I am proud of our government for taking that essential, indeed long overdue step. It is also the case that we have not made illegal previously legal conduct, and owners may continue to have these guns provided that they are safely stored and are not being used.
Mr. Morrison.
Madam Chair, when the minister invoked the order in council gun ban, what was the budget the government approved for the buyback?
The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister.
Madam Speaker, let me point to what is essential about that action which our government took. What is essential about that action is we stopped, as of the date of the OIC, these weapons whose only purpose is to kill other people, additional ones from coming into Canada.
Mr. Morrison.
Madam Chair, as the list of prohibited guns is expanding daily, can the minister answer how many guns the government will be potentially buying back?
Let me be extremely clear with the member opposite and with the party opposite. We have a clear political difference of opinion here, and I do not shy away from underscoring that. Our government believes that military-style assault weapons have no place in...
Mr. Morrison.
Could it be 200,000?
The Deputy Prime Minister.
Madam Speaker, let me be very, very clear. We disagree about something very directly in Canadian...
Morrison.
Chair, is the minister looking at a possible $1 billion or more for the buyback and huge administration costs?
Prime Minister.
Well, Madam Speaker, I believe the member opposite is trying to muddy the waters and is trying to distract Canadians from the clear question. Do Canadians want military-style assault weapons in our...
Mr. Morrison.
Madam Chair, the safety of Canadians is #1 priority. How does a minister explain buying back legal guns from legal gun owners is a strategic priority when the safety of Canadians is at risk from gangs and organized crime who are using illegal guns and are illegally possessing them?
Honourable Deputy Prime Minister.
Madam Speaker, I'm very grateful for that question because it allows me to say what is absolutely essential to our government and to me personally in this historic action. And that is that it is long past time to protect Canadians, and let me say particularly to protect Canadian women and girls from these weapons. After the Polytechnique, we all owe a...
Mr. Morrison.
Madam Chair, will the minister please advise us what is the percentage of gun crimes were committed using legally registered guns?
Honourable Deputy Prime Minister.
Again, I in no way shy away from the clear difference between our government and the official opposition. We think that Canada is a safer, a healthier place without these military-style assault weapons.
Mr. Morrison.
And I'm happy to say that all day.
Madam Chair, if the minister plans to spend $1 billion on buying legal guns from legal gun owners, what's the government's budget to provide the RCMP and CBSA to once and for all stop the flow of illegal guns across the border?
Deputy Prime Minister.
Madam Speaker, of course, illegal weapons have no place in Canada, and illegal weapons should not be moved from the United States to Canada. And you know what else, Madam Speaker? We as a government have an obligation to every single Canadian, particularly vulnerable Canadians,
Ms. Atwin.
to ban these weapons once and for all, and we've done it.
Ms. Atwin.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. On June 5th, Indigenous Services Minister said he was outraged in response to the act of police violence against Indigenous people and the recent death of Chantal Moore. I too am outraged. Families want answers. We should all want answers. I want to know, is the Minister of Public Safety outraged? Does he condemn the systemic discrimination among the police force in Canada?
The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I would like to thank the member for that very important question. Yes, I am outraged. I think all of us are and need to be outraged. And absolutely, systemic discrimination, systemic racism exists everywhere in Canada. I'm sad to say it exists in our hearts and in our minds, And we need to now take these tragedies and use them to change.
Atwin?
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I thank the Deputy Prime Minister for that very thoughtful response. On May 1st, while introducing new firearms regulations, the Minister of Public Safety said, "If now is not the time, when is? If now is not the time to put an end to racial profiling, when is? If now is not the time to rethink how the police intervene during a wellness check, when is? If now is not the time to end the patterns of dehumanization and violence that keep repeating themselves, when is?" Madam Speaker, I am asking the Minister of Public Safety, if now is not the time to work to end systemic discrimination in the police forces and our justice system, when is?
The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister.
Madam Speaker, let me again thank the member for her question. And let me start by saying, now is the time. Now is the time for all of us to commit to the incredibly hard work of ending systemic discrimination and systemic racism in all Canadian institutions. That is something we all need to be committed to. It is something our government is committed to. On the issue of racial profiling specifically, let me be clear that that is entirely unacceptable. It's wrong. Police forces mustn't do it. And let me also thank the member for connecting in her question the ban on military-style assault weapons and the need for us together to work against systemic discrimination.
Ms. Atwin.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Across the country, we see that police service is, in the vast majority of cases, the biggest single line item of an operating budget. Police are responding to tens of thousands of mental health calls each year. Studies show that the percentage of work of the police involving social issues is ever growing, while coincidentally, we are seeing the defunding of multiple critical social services. Something is wrong here, and it is costing people their lives. Can the Minister of Families, Children and Social Development advise on the vision of the government regarding this reality and share with this committee if there's any plan on the table towards ensuring that communities have access to the funds required to reinvest in the social services that the population critically needs?
The Honourable Minister.
Madam Speaker, I'm very happy to the member to ask this really important question. We are being there for families, for children, for our most vulnerable. We've introduced the Emergency Community Support Fund to make sure that we not only support organizations that are delivering essential services to the most vulnerable in our communities, but actually expand their capacity to do that. We will be there for Canadian families. We will continue to be there for Canadian children and our seniors.
Atwin.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Charities are a key component of our communities, and they contribute immensely to strengthen the social fabric of this country. But because of the impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic, they are now facing billions in lost revenue, drastic service disruption to essential community services, and massive layoffs disproportionately impacting women. The sector is projected to lose $15.6 billion in revenue and about 194,000 employees. Can the Minister of Workforce, Development and Disability Inclusion share what the government's plan is to support charities and the essential work that they do?
Minister.
Madam Speaker, once again, I want to thank the honourable member for raising a really important issue. Charities provide key and essential services to Canadians, and when Canadians need help, charities step up, and we have to be there for them. The Emergency Community Support Fund is exactly meant to do that. $350 million to support charities and nonprofits in Canada who are delivering really important and essential services to more Canadians than ever before. There is a larger request from the sector for stabilization money, and we have received those proposals and we're studying them very carefully. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Ms. McPherson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I will be sharing my time with the member for Courtenay Alberni today. I rise again on behalf of people living with disabilities in my riding and across Canada. I am shocked by this government's announcement last week. They cynically waited until Friday of the Accessibility Week to announce supports for people living with disabilities. That was 12 weeks after the start of the pandemic, 5 weeks after they promised to deliver without delay. Even though their corporate friends and big banks got funding within days of the pandemic being declared, and as usual, it was way too little and it was way too late. Does the minister realize that over 60% of people living with disabilities in Canada will not be able to access these funds.
Minister.
I thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank the member opposite for her important question. Last Friday was indeed a really important day for our citizens with disabilities. We announced an investment of $550 million to over 1.25 million Canadians with disabilities. Madam Speaker, we've been working with the disability community from the beginning of this pandemic. We've been careful to make sure that we are supporting initiatives on the ground in local communities, working with provinces to make sure our efforts were complementary, ensuring that as we rolled out initiatives like the student benefits, that students with disabilities were explicitly considered in our measures, and I will not apologize for what we delivered on Friday. Thank you.
McPherson.
By tying this help to the disability tax credit, the government is intentionally leaving out the poorest people living on disability. Can the minister tell us what percentage of people eligible for the CPP disability tax credit will receive this support?
Honourable Minister.
Madam Speaker, the Canadians who get the DTC are by far the largest cohort of citizens that we provide service to at the federal level for people with disabilities. I can advise the member that there are a significant portion of CPP disability and QPP disability recipients that are indeed covered by the DTC, but approximately 40% of those eligible CPPD recipients, are not currently claiming the DTC.
10 seconds, very short.
Why is this government so focused on excluding people instead of helping as many as possible? Will this government finally put supports in place so that all Canadians with disabilities are protected?
Minister, very short answer.
Madam Speaker, I can assure you that we're working very hard to do just that.
The honourable member for Courtenay-Alberni, Mr. Johns.
Madam Speaker, on the one-year anniversary of the National Inquiry into the Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women and Girls report, Chantel Moore, a wonderful young Nuu-chah-nulth mom, a member of Cloquet Nation, was shot dead by a police officer. The minister expressed outrage and wondered aloud how this could have happened. But no amount of outrage will bring Chantel back. Implementing the 231 calls for justice by the National Inquiry will save the lives of others like her. When will the government table and implement the promised National Action Plan with dedicated funding and timetables?
Minister.
I thank the member for the question, and our hearts go out to the family of Chantel as well. This is all of the survivors and all of the families of the missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls deserve our support, and we will not let them down. We will go forward with the kinds of commitments that have to be there to deal with the systemic racism that's at the root of all of this, with the misogyny that means that Indigenous women and girls have been
Mr. Johns.
Sorry. Madam Speaker, Indigenous people and all Canadians are waiting for action. They've been sitting on this for a year. Why is the government dragging its feet on such an important issue?
The Honourable Minister.
I thank the member for the question, and I think that it is really important to recognize that this is a national public inquiry, not a federal one, and that it has been really important as we work with all the provinces and territories and the national organizations, the local organizations, the families and survivors to build a national action plan bottom up that will actually be the concrete actions to stop this national tragedy.
Mr. Johns.
The family and loved ones of Chantel Moore want answers about why and how she was shot dead by a police officer, but they'll have to wait for an investigation and rely on what those involved in her death say happened. What will the government actually do to change how calls like these are responded to? Does the minister really think that police are the right answer for wellness checks?
The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister, very short answer.
Thank you for the important question. We absolutely agree that this tragic death should have been avoided, and we absolutely agree that it behooves all of us to have root and branch reform of how these cases are handled.
Monsieur Savard.
Mr. Savard-Tremblay. Madam Chair, the aeronautic industry in Quebec is strategic.
but it's in trouble. I think everyone agree with that. Bombardier is almost at a dangerous level. It could be bought over because of the insufficient Investment Canada Act. There are thousands of jobs in Quebec at stake. There are concerns both within the industry and in various members of the civil society. How come the government didn't act as quickly as it did for the automotive industry or the oil industry at almost at any time? The Honourable Minister. Madam Speaker, unfortunately, I do not agree with my colleague because our government does understand the importance of the aerospace industry. That's why we've invested in it since 2015. Our government understands the importance of investing in R&D, and this investment will improve the situation for aerospace workers, and we're going to continue to work every day to improve the situation for that sector. Mr. Savard-Tremblay. What I've heard is that they're heading in that direction. That's encouraging. But with respect to the good work this government keeps boasting about, the government of Quebec is concerned. We haven't reached the same verdict. Even the industry itself sent a letter last week to the Prime Minister calling him on this issue. In terms of the Quebec Institute, which was confronted by the Conference Board of Canada, they published a study that specifically mentioned Ottawa's inaction in this respect. So what concrete action is coming up, the Honourable Minister?
Madame la Présidente.
Madam Speaker, unfortunately, once again, I don't agree with my colleague because we have invested a lot of money in the aerospace sector since 2015. Our position is very clear. We are going to continue to work with the Quebec government, with the sector, but our position is clear. We're going to continue to invest in the aerospace sector because it is very important for our workers. Mr. Savard-Tremblay. Well, based on what I've understood, Canada is roughly the only country with an aerospace industry that has no specific policy for this sector. And based on what I've understood, with some imagination from the minister's answer, is that there'll be no more money. But the threshold in the Bombardier affair in Quebec says that we shouldn't be giving money to companies without strings. They want the money to go to workers and not just to executives. But is there a ceiling in terms of payments that executives can receive? Are there any conditions that could be related to jobs staying in Canada? And will there be conditions with this funding? And when I asked about this, I was told that conditions are important. What are these conditions that will come with the concrete action that's coming that we still don't know about? The Honourable Minister.
Madame la Présidente.
Our position is very clear. We're going to continue to invest in the aerospace sector because it's very important for our economy, for the future, and for our workers. And this is why we are going to continue to work with the Quebec government and with the industry. And I am certain that our strategy will improve the situation. Unfortunately, in the short term, we're going to continue to see issues, but I'm certain that in the future, in the longer term, we will have a very robust sector, and it's essential for our economy, and notably for workers.
Mr. Richards.
Well, the tourism industry in Canada supports 1 out of every 11 jobs. It's actually Canada's 5th largest sector, and it's responsible for 2% of our GDP. Now, without government action to support the industry, 61,000 tourism businesses, which is over 50% of all tourism businesses, will fail. And over 1.5 million Canadians will lose their jobs as a result. Now, despite this, and despite the Prime Minister saying well over a month ago that there was going to be a specific package for tourism, the Tourism Minister has been simply pointing towards measures that are existing measures and haven't been sufficient to help the industry. So will the government commit today to sufficient measures that will actually help the tourism sector?
Honourable Minister.
Thank you to my colleague for his important question. I agree with him. The tourism sector is an important sector, and it's has been very impacted by the pandemic and the economic crisis. And so that's why we extended the wage subsidy until the end of August. That's why we came up with commercial rent reliefs all across the country, and with the $40,000 loan, the CEBA account. But since he last asked the question regarding the tourism sector, we announced $70 million more to make sure that we would support destination marketing organizations, and he even applauded this new investment. So I'm happy to continue to work with him because we need to do these investments for the tourism sector.
That's far from able to ensure the industry and its survival. It's far from enough to be able to ensure these businesses that are looking at going on the business will survive. Now, it's really disheartening to be able to hear the Prime Minister, or certainly the Minister, pardon me, just spouting these talking points, because she knows it's not enough. And one of the biggest people affected by these job losses and these business closures in this sector is going to be women. It's going to be youth. It's going to be visible minorities, new Canadians, and certainly Indigenous people. Now, what is the government doing specifically to assist Indigenous tourism businesses in Canada?
Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. We believe in the importance of Indigenous tourism across the country. That's why I had good conversations with Keith Henry, the president of ITAC, the Indigenous Tourism Association of Canada, and we will be supporting ITAC through new funding, which will be allocated by Destination Canada to make sure that we can help Indigenous tourism businesses across the country.
Well,
Mr. Richards. May I remind members to wait until I call your name? Just wait until I call your name so your mic can open, please, Mr. Richards.
Conversations don't get the job done. And I certainly look forward to hearing more detail when they do announce it, if they ever do, because we've been promised things before that they haven't delivered. I want to hear about the wage subsidy. Will the government do anything to make changes to that wage subsidy so that seasonal businesses can qualify?
Well, Minister.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The question of my colleague is important because we just finished the consultations regarding the wage subsidy. The Minister of Finance is very seized of the situation. I understand the tourism sector has also made some good recommendations. So we will take stock of these recommendations.
Mr. Richards.
Again, promises and talk about conversations, but no action. It's time for action. Now, what about the support for meetings and conventions and special events in those sectors? Because they've been completely decimated, pardon me. What is the government doing for those sectors?
Minister.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So that's exactly why we're helping them through the different measures, including the wage subsidy, which the tourism sector wanted until the end of the summer. We've done that, so good news. Also for the $40,000 loans, which we call the CEBA account. And if these operators fall through the cracks, they can come and see the regional development agencies. We will be there to support them to make sure that they can survive and really bounce back when tourism is much more in a recovery phase in the coming months.
Sir Richards?
The industry can't get to a recovery phase if the government doesn't give them the opportunity to be able to survive this. So what about agritourism? That's typically in small communities that don't have DMOs. What about agritourism?
Minister?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So for agritourism businesses, they can have access to community futures programs, or in Quebec, it's called the SADC, and definitely they will be supported. We've done the biggest investment in decades in our community futures organizations, and we hope that this investment will really help them survive this economic crisis.
Le comité est maintenant adjourné.
The committee is now adjourned until tomorrow at noon.